Welcome back to hour number 2 of the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. Before we get with our next guest, I do want to remind you that we have another Putting Central Pennsylvania Back to Work job fair coming up later today. It'll be at Park City Center in Lancaster, right there at Park City, the whole complex right there in the center. It'll be easy to find. Come out today from noon until 5 and talk to various companies that have jobs available right now, this minute. That's right. For a list of the companies that will be there and more details, go to newsradio910.com, and you can check it out. I'll be out there today from 1 to about 1:30, so if you want to stop by and see me in that rather narrow window, please do so. I've got to run to another client after that, so I'm looking forward to getting around the countryside today quite a bit. Our next guest has written a book called Collective Retribution. He is D.S.Edwards. He's a citizen advocate. He's the author of this new book. It is a book of fiction, but it is one of those books that could be based around something that could really be happening today. And we wanted to talk today a little bit with him about the executive action on immigration. We just heard a few moments ago that John Boehner and the Congress, at least the House of Representatives, are now going to have vote on a clean bill on that. Wanted to get his thoughts on it. He has lived in Oregon his whole life. I believe I'm correct on that. And we welcome to the show Mr. D.S. Edwards here on the Gary Sutton Show. Mr. Edwards, great to have you on the show. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Gary. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great to have you in. And by the way, we will tell people up front here, if you would like a copy of this book, Collective Retribution, as you hear about it during the course of this particular segment, please feel free to call 1-800-357-0910. Let Brian know. We'll get the information, get it to Mr. Edwards, and he'll send you a free autographed copy of his new book. There are 2 available today, so if you want to call in and get one of those 2, feel free. Brian will tell you when you're number 3, which is not the place you want to be today, okay? Anyway, D.S., it's great to have you with us here this morning on the show. Let's talk a little bit, first of all, about this whole executive order on immigration. The president came down with this. Of course, as many Republicans have been using the talking points, 22 times he said he couldn't do this. And then he said, well, Congress hasn't acted, therefore I'm going to. So apparently somewhere other than the Constitution, he got the authority to do this. So I'm wondering where you stand on this whole thing right now coming into this conversation.
Yeah, well, my question on the whole thing is, and this has been my question from the beginning, you know, if we have immigration now in the country, and, you know, believe it or not, there's close to 1 million people. This is right from the immigration office. There's close to 1 million people allowed to immigrate here every year. Close to 1 million people that do it legally, that actually immigrate here every year. And that's not citizenship. That's different than citizenship. That's just like a green card or their, you know, a resident, you know, residence card. But also every year there's, you know, around 800,000 who become naturalized citizens. So that's a big, big number. And those people do it right. They get assimilated into the culture. They contribute to society, so on and so forth. And, you know, we're talking amnesty for all those people that are here that came here illegally, and that's kind of a problem. I don't know where the big narrative came from that we've got a real immigration problem. No, we have a problem with people doing it illegally. That's our problem.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's not a hard mathematics problem to do. And one of the things that I've suggested, and it probably is not the most popular thing for some out there who would try to blend illegal immigration process, and again, I hate to use the words illegal and immigration together because immigration is a legal process, illegal aliens coming to the country and legal immigrants coming into the country together, because what I've said is I think there ought to be a moratorium. I'd have a moratorium of like 3 years on any immigration until we start to sift this whole thing out and figure out what's right for our country and then do something about it. What would your thoughts be about something like that?
Yeah, you know, I absolutely agree. What should the number be? I mean, I've been asked that question before. Should there be a limit on the number of people allowed to immigrate? You know what? Absolutely. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We can only absorb so much and handle so much economically. I mean, we've got, you know, welfare. We've got the EBT, the food stamp cards. You know, we're already in an economic issue with our own citizens. I mean, we can only handle so much, and we can't tax the job creators anymore to come up with any more money. I mean, we're running out of money, so there has to be a number. What is that number? I'm not sure. I'm not an economist. I'm just a guy who's, concerned about it and concerned about the danger that's going to come across that southern border if we don't get our border secure.
I'm the same way. I don't know what the right number is exactly, but I think 3 years would give us a chance to sit down and have greater minds, and I guess ours, figure this out and say, okay, what impact is it having on people in our economy, in our country right now, when we allow this to go forward? And people say this is called immigration reform. I call it immigration deform, because it's not, allowing illegal aliens to go into the country in the same breath you're saying we're allowing immigrants to come into this country and do it over a process which I think can be streamlined and made better. That would be immigration reform, where you wanted to make it better and quicker and still be able to do your due diligence on checking them out. I have no problem with that kind of immigration reform. What I have a problem with is people calling it, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Well, it's immigration reform when you want to declare illegal legal, and that's exactly what the president has done in this case.
Yeah, it's scary stuff. And, there was a survey done in the Atlantic not too long ago, and it was by the Religious Research Institute. And you know how surveys can be skewed, and they're talking about how, 60% of the population's in favor of immigration reform, so on and so forth. But when I hear that, there's a disconnect in our society. There's a disconnect in America between rural and urban and conservative and progressive. And when I hear, immigration reform, I automatically think, okay, it's, amnesty and it's allowing those to break the law. And when the left hears it, they see poor, oppressed families wanting to come and lay at the feet of the Statue of Liberty. So, there's a definite disconnect. It's like if they say, the progressives say arsenal of weapons. Oh, I just think that's a family gun collection. There's a definite disconnect in, how people view things. And the left has controlled the narrative for a long, long time. And we need to be more vocal and more articulate in gaining that narrative back and letting people know why conservatism is the best way to go.
It's really interesting. I just saw coming across the news a moment ago that John Boehner is going to allow a clean vote in the House of Representatives now. So do you see this as, I think many Americans see it, as a cave-in? I remember when the president came out with this in November, the executive action, and a lot of these Republicans ran up to the microphones with their people standing behind them, and they said, this is unconstitutional. I don't know how I can do this. Then they voted to fund the Homeland Security in November, or in December, when that all came down because they were afraid not to. And so that basically funded Homeland Security until the end of February. And then they said in February, we're going to come back and do something about it. Well, here we are in March, and at the end of February, and the Republicans once again not doing anything. They have been gutless, to say the least, on this whole thing. When does somebody stand up for principle in this country and stand up for the rights of the citizens who are here?
Well, like I said, the left has controlled the narrative for so long that the average American has no idea what the right principle is. They don't know what is the proper course. They're not educated. The uninformed electorate drives policy in America, and that's because the narrative has been controlled by the progressive movement, and we've really got to start speaking out. I talk to people about this all the time when I go and speak. We've got to speak out in the marketplace. We've got to start making our voices heard, and I'm talking citizens. I'm not talking the politicians, the pundits, the mainstream media, the alternative media. I'm talking as citizens, we have to stand up and we have to educate people, because if we don't, we're going to lose our country. And if we don't fix the immigration quote-unquote problem, we're going to be in real trouble. To me, it's not about the poor, oppressed families. It's not about those wanting to make a better life for themselves. It's not even about the drain on the resources. To me, it's all about the danger that we're in, every single person that our republic is in, because of that open southern border. The northern border is open as well, but that southern border wide open with the criminal element down there, like I wrote about in Collective Retribution, it's just a matter of time before a jihadi group, with Iran's nuclear aspirations, so on and so forth, cross the T's, dot the I's. It's just a matter of time before dangerous nuclear weapons make it across that southern border. It's not if it happens, it's when, unless we get that border secured.
There's a rhetorical question I want to ask, and the answer maybe is obvious. How do you call yourself progressive when what you're doing is regressive to the country. When you say, well, progressive is I'm going to take illegals and I'm going to bring them out of the shadows into the light of day in this country, and I'm going to make them legal with a swing of my pen. How do you? I don't know how you do that and say that somehow that is a progressive way of governing in this country. Do you?
Well, progressive comes from change. I mean, in the 60s, everybody wanted to change things. We wanted to be, they're looking for that form of enlightenment. They're looking for nirvana, if you will. And if we all get along and everything's, we all wear tie-dye and we all get along and, the drum circle diplomacy that we're seeing out of the State Department now is a product of that progressivism. And to them, progressive means progress. Get rid of the old evil empire that's the United States, and let's turn us into that, that...
You do your thing, I'll do my thing. My right is not your right. Your wrong is not my wrong. There's no absolutes.
Exactly. There's no moral
Everything's
absolute.
Gray. Yeah. I hear you. I mean, I absolutely agree with you, and I think that's where we've come to, and that's what progressives basically, unfortunately, for the most part, represent in the messages that they said, that there is no real right or wrong in the country, and I believe that there is. I just, and it sounds like you do too. We're talking right now with D.S.Edwards, who has written this book called Collective Retribution. What's the book about? Tell me about how this kind of fits into the whole thing, because I know it is a work of fiction. And I'm one of those guys that loves to read these kind of things, by the way, that are built around real times, but they're works of fiction. By the way, Linda Maurer won the first book. We have one more book available if you want to call 1-800-357-0910 and get the second autographed copy here from D.S. Edwards. But tell us a little bit about Collective Retribution.
Well, the book was born from a family's personal tragedy. My wife's baby sister was 19, had a 2-year-old daughter. She was murdered thanks to the influence and this illegal that had been deported 3 different times. And anyway, to make a long story short, she was murdered tragically and left a baby daughter behind. And I woke up one day and I thought, how can I make a difference? What can I do as Joe Citizen? And so I sat down and I thought, I want to draw light. I want to shine a light on the open southern border, and I want people to wake up and realize, the danger that we're in. And that's what the book deals with. I mean, it starts on the southern border. Some very nasty individuals get a hold of some nuclear weapons, and they're brought into the United States with the help of some drug cartels and the infrastructure that they've already got in place for their smuggling of their narcotics in and out of the United States and their weapons. So some very nasty stuff happens, and before you know it, the United States finds itself back in the Dark Ages, and we've got Russian and German troops trying to, help keep the peace, but take over, and it's kind of a Louis L'Amour meets Tom Clancy. It started out as a political thriller, and it turned into something a little bit more. What's
been the reaction so far to your book?
It's been fantastic. It hasn't been out real long. I've got quite a few fans. I've got quite a few. All of my reviews on Amazon are 5-star, so it's been really, really well received.
I saw one of your fans is Sheriff Joe Arpaio from Maricopa County in Arizona, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, he's such a great guy. I sat down with him about 6 months ago, and we just sat in his office for 2 hours on a couch and talked. And oh my gosh, the guy gets it. And I've seen, he deals with the criminal element on the border all the time, and he gets it. And we really need more people like that.
Well, I've had him on the show a few times, and I go to Washington every year with the Hold Their Feet to the Fire radio announcers. We go in April, in fact. April 15th and 16th will be there this year. We talk about this problem in the country. We talk about immigration, and Joe Arpaio has been one of the voices out there that really doesn't really equivocate a whole lot. I mean, if anybody knows Joe Arpaio, he's called America's Sheriff, and he is a guy who says it like it is, and a lot of people who are progressive don't particularly like his methods or his look at the whole thing. D.S. Edwards has written a book called Collective Retribution. D.S., we're going to take a very quick break. We'll come right back with you and want to talk more about your book and more about this immigration problem in the country. Is it an immigration problem, or is it a problem of people who just want to make illegal legal? Is it that very simple? Is that what it is? Or are they righting wrongs that have been done by us in the past? Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show with D.S. Edwards, who's the author of Collective Retribution. He is also a citizen advocate. And I want to ask you, D.S., what as citizen advocate? I'm calling people all the time to be citizen activists. You're a citizen advocate. What does that mean?
It means that we need to be what the Founding Fathers intended us to be. My favorite Founding Father was Thomas Paine, and I liked him because he was kind of the propagandist of the day. And
wrote Common Sense and the great pamphlet, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, Common Sense, but the pamphlets that came out after that, Crisis, he said something very profound. He said, he had a quote in there about the summer soldier.
And the Sunshine Patriot, yeah.
And, he made a lot of sense. We can't just be sunshine patriots. We can't just speak out and be involved when it's convenient or when we don't feel that discomfort. We have to do it all the time. So, we have to speak out, like I said, in the marketplace, in the grocery store line, wherever you go, in your job, you have to speak out. You can't be bullied into not speaking out because the narrative has to change. People need to understand what's going on. The left I say that there's two problems with the main political parties. The Democrat Party has a math problem, and the Republicans have a messaging problem.
Yes, they do.
They can't they can't articulate their message, and the Democrats can't get over the laws of mathematics, what they've done to the dollar, what they're doing to the country. Mathematically, if it doesn't stop, we're done. I don't...
I've never heard it said that way, and I've heard a lot of things said in regard to that, but I've never heard it said quite that way, and I think that's pretty good, a math problem and a messaging problem. One of the things that Thomas Paine did during that time, it was at one of the dark days of the Revolution, and Paine was writing these pamphlets, Common Sense, Crisis. But you mentioned that piece about the summer soldier and the Sunshine Patriot, and it goes on to say we'll basically wilt in this crisis.
Absolutely.
And I wonder how applicable that is to today, that we are seeing our patriots wilt in the face of this progressive move to make anything go in this country, that everything seems to be so foreign to many of us out there, and yet we have a lot of summer soldiers and sunshine patriots who are standing out there who are letting this go on by.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the problem with that, or a lot of the causes for that are many, but, one major cause is everything in our lives now is so technology-driven that there's no need to research. There's no need to ferret out the issues because everything's at their fingertips. And I think we've kind of become lazy as far as, the entire world's wealth of information is one click of the button away, but people don't research it because that takes work. Everything's become too easy. So, the uninformed electorate drives policy in this country. The uninformed are the ones that are voting. How many people even know who Benjamin Netanyahu is? Speaking of Benjamin Netanyahu, there was a story that came across my desk this morning, and sources inside the intelligence community, I can't remember which one, I don't know if it was The Blaze or somebody, saying that the White House now is no longer sharing intelligence with Israel on Iran's nuclear aspirations. We're playing a dangerous, dangerous game here. Can you imagine an armed Iran, nuclear-armed Iran?
And yet we have an Israeli intelligence network that is beyond compare, really, and that's one of the things we're going to hear about today. By the way, 30 minutes until Netanyahu's going to speak. He just pulled up in front of the Capitol. And, going back to what you said there for a moment about maybe some of the people who are not really informed about this, 60% of the people in this Public Religion Research Institute Atlantic poll basically said 60% said there should be a path to citizenship for illegal immigrants. 55% say that immigrants strengthen the country because of their hard work ethic. 36% say that they are a burden because they take jobs, housing, and health care away from regular Americans. And so, you see that, and people say, 60% say there should be a path to citizenship for illegals. Really? How is that going to benefit the country in the long run? Final thought.
Yeah, I don't think, like I said, I think polls can be skewed, and, it depends on what question you ask. Did they ask the question, those who are trying to escape, the drug cartels and the violence, should they be allowed to stay? It just depends on the polls that they ask, but I think people are so uninformed that might be an accurate number right now. That might be an accurate number. People might actually believe that.
Well, the name of the book is Collective Retribution. D.S.Edwards is the author, and as Joe Arpaio said right on the front cover, it's one wild ride, intense, passionate, and most of all, a disturbing look at America's possible future. A must-read for anyone who is concerned about the path the United States is on. Collective Retribution, well worth the read. I'm going to be sitting down and reading it myself, DS, and I'm looking forward to it. And I hope we can have you back again sometime. You have some wonderful ideas here, and I always like talking with people who've thought this thing out a little bit.
I'll come back anytime. And like I said, we have to speak out. If anybody wants to continue the conversation with me at the end here, I try and answer every email personally. I talk to people personally. They can follow me on Twitter at D.S.Edwards Author. They can like the Collective Retribution book page on Facebook. They can send me an email at www.dsedwardsbooks.com. And like I said, I try and answer everyone personally, and we've got to start working together, and we've got to start building a citizen network, or we're done.
Again, the website is DSEdwardsBooks, all one word, .com. So get in there and have a chat.
Absolutely.
DS, an honor having with us this morning, and good luck on the book. It should be a great success.
Thank you very much. God bless, man.
You too. Take care. D.S. Edwards with us here on the Gary Sutton Show. Interesting guy. And I love reading books like this. So Collective Retribution is the name of the book out there. You can find it on Amazon, a lot of the bookstores.